back to another episode of Bo Knows. Not a lot, but Bo knows what he thinks about, and that's what really matters. So we all know that Hunter got convicted this week. Great, awesome, that's perfect. Who cares? I really don't care. The reality is that just like the Donald Trump things, just like the 34 misdemeanor accounting charges that were somehow turned into a federal charge, there is zero chance that this error on a federal form goes where it goes if Hunter's just a normal person. For two reasons. One, a normal person would have just said, yeah, I lied. You got all the information, you got all the evidence, yeah, I lied. Let's just go ahead and get my punishment over. It's probably going to be probation. But let's don't forget, not for a second, that this got to court because a year ago, Hunter Biden, in cohorts with the DOJ and Hunter Biden's attorneys, tried to get a sweetheart deal through that was going to literally give him immunity for any crime he may ever commit for the rest of his life anywhere. Who gets that deal? I want that deal. Hey, I'm just going to put it in here that says some language that says, if you ever do commit a crime anywhere, anytime, you can do that with impunity. How does that work for any normal person? The only problem was Judge Mary Ann Norieca, who is absolutely one of my heroes at this point for just doing the right thing, irrespective of who the people are, who the players are or the actors are in the play. She said, right is right, wrong is wrong. But they did their very best. Here's how this went down. Hunter's laptop gets found. The FBI has it in 2019. They know its contents are absolutely verified. They've gone through it themselves. And if we think the FBI doesn't go through and make sure that that's not Russian disinformation, you're absolutely out of your mind. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're an idiot. They went through it to make sure that there was so much damaging evidence on that thing that they wanted to make sure that it was real and that they couldn't say it's Russian disinformation. They went ahead and said that later, but they wanted to make sure they couldn't say it for real. So the laptop gets found. Oh my God, what are we going to do now? So let's see if we can let all of the statute of limitations run out on all of the crimes that are on that computer. Whether it's Federal Agent Registration Act, Foreign Agent Registration Act, sorry. Whether it's the Faro violations or any of the other violations and all of the other stuff, the things where his father has said nobody's ever made money from China, all that's proven on the laptop. So they try to bury all of that for as long as they can. Then the computer guy goes, hey, by the way, I gave this laptop to the FBI a year ago. They're not doing anything with it. So maybe here, Ruby Giuliani, here's the same information I gave them. And he goes, holy crap, what do? You guys have this information? Then, after trying to bury it for as long as they can, 2 IRS whistleblowers come out and say, hey, we've been trying to prosecute this case for as long as you can imagine, for 3 or 4 or 5 years. The man skipped out on millions of dollars worth of his taxes. The only reason that didn't come to light was because the IRS was being shut down at every turn by the DOJ and powerful forces within the government. So when he didn't get the sweetheart deal, when the sweetheart deal became found out by this judge, and we knew we had the laptop, all of a sudden everybody went, oh, we're going to have to prosecute him now. Don't give me this crap that they did it because the justice system works the way it's supposed to. The justice system was doing everything they could to not make it work, but they got caught and didn't have a choice. To this day, the New York Times, that laptop report came out, I believe, sometime in early October, the October surprise of the 2020 election. 2 days after that laptop article was written in the New York Post, Joe Biden stood up on that stage and said 51 intelligence agents are saying that it's Russian disinformation. He knew for an absolute fact that it was real. Hunter knew it was real. The FBI knew it was real. And to this day, you want to talk about the mainstream media being in bed with him? The New York Times still, after after the FBI got up on the stand in the trial and said, we have verified all of the information, there are no digital footprints anywhere to make it look like this has got anybody else's fingerprints on it except Hunter Biden. And the New York Times still, to this day, just the other day wrote an article at Katie Robertson, I guess, from the New York Times, and in it there's a quote. And the quote is, many claims about the laptop's contents have not been proven, but it played a role in the prosecution of Mr. Biden over a firearm purchase. What part hasn't been proven? You guys are still covering for them after the FBI said, yeah, we kind of hid that information, we kind of buried it, and it absolutely is proven. He's been convicted. Now, they've let the statute of limitations run out on all the bigger crimes. They're ignoring a lot of the other things. Now everybody wants to say, see, we got it. No. There's a lot of other crimes that should be being prosecuted. I don't know that they ever will, but let's go with they would. Here's my take. If I'm Donald Trump, I pardon them all. First thing I do is go on TV and say, yeah, if I'm elected, what Joe said he wasn't going to pardon Hunter. I don't believe that. I think if he doesn't get elected, he would pardon him before he left office anyways. I would. I'm just telling you, if I was a dad and I was going to go, I'm going home and nobody reelected me and I'm not going to have the job anymore, my last day in office, I'm like, yep, my son's pardoned. Have a nice day. He can't go to jail. I'm just going to do it. Just telling you. But if you want to be the bigger man, Donald Trump should say right now, if I'm elected, one of the first things I will do on the first day in office is pardon Hunter Biden and Joe Biden for any and all crimes they may have committed now or in the past against the United States of America, and drop all of the investigations. Two reasons. One, makes you look like the bigger man. Makes you look like the guy that says, hey, I'm done with this lawfare. We've got things to do. We got work to do. And the first thing I want to do is repair the trust in the organizations. I want to repair the trust. I talked about that in one of the last episodes about, do you trust these people? Because I don't. But one of the first things that would happen is, forget this revenge, forget everything else. I got business to do. I got work to do, and I don't have time to mess with all this. And so whatever they've done in the past, can't undo it. It's done. It is what it is. Whatever money they got, whatever this they got, whatever influence they had, it's gone. Shut it down. Let's move on. I think that if Donald Trump did that, there would be a lot of independent voters out there right off the top that would say, look, I'll vote for that man. If he's getting past all that. He's not worried about it. The reality is, when he had the chants going on back in 2016 of lock her up, he didn't start those chants about Hillary Clinton. They were started at some of his rallies. But the reality is, when he got in office, what actually happened? I hear all these crazy people out there, Rachel Maddow, who is more narcissistic than anybody I've ever seen, talking about how she's worried about Trump's going to put her in jail, or AOC, I'm going to be thrown in jail, or a gulag. Two things. Number one, Donald Trump doesn't even know who you are. He doesn't care who you are. He's got business to go do, and it doesn't involve your weak butt. So the bigger man should be the one that just says, I'm done with all this. Let's go to work. I don't have time for any of this foolishness anymore. He didn't do it back in 2016. He let them all go. He brushed it aside. Once he got into office, you never heard him talking about Hillary Clinton again, unless somebody asked him a question. You never heard him talking about revenge. You never heard him talking about... They spent year after year after year absolutely decimating this man and trying to destroy his reputation and everything he's worked for over his lifetime. And he just kept taking the bullets and the arrows and didn't really fight back, because if he did, there'd be some of them that would be in jail. If he did to them what they've done to him, there's some would be in jail. But that's my take anyways. I think he ought to pardon Hunter Biden. I think he ought to pardon Joe Biden. I think he ought to pardon James Biden and call it a day and just say, look, I'm not dealing with it anymore. Let's move on. So the second thing I wanted to talk about, though, and it may be way more important. You guys, you've all watched movies where there's terrorists, right? We've all watched movies where they had hijackings or the plane gets hijacked. And what's the most iconic line you hear all of the time in any of those movies or in real life when it's happening and Americans get kidnapped. What's the line? We all know what it is. We don't negotiate with terrorists. You know why we don't negotiate with terrorists? It's a pretty simple explanation. Because when you negotiate with terrorists, terrorists create more terror. When they think there's something in it for them, they continue to do it, making it more unsafe for everybody else. Brittany Griner is a great basketball player. She absolutely is. Brittany Griner, by her own admission, committed a crime by taking illegal substances into Russia when she was trying to play basketball over there during the summer a couple years ago. She shouldn't have done that, and the consequences are severe. It's no different than those 5 people that were down in the Turks and Caicos here recently that are all American citizens that all got detained because they had stray bullets in their backpacks and were facing up to 12 years in jail. The reality is, that's the law in that country. You broke their law. They were nice enough, Turks and Caicos were nice enough to say, look, we're going to give you guys a break this time, but that's the law. I want it all over the United States media that do not bring any ammunition into the Turks and Caicos, because if you do and we catch you, we're going to put you in jail. And they should. That's their laws. We are tourists. We are obligated to follow their laws, just like people that come into the United States are obligated to follow our laws. It's that simple. Brittany Griner broke a law in Russia. And what we did was negotiated with the people who put her in jail to give them an arms dealer that was absolutely responsible for the death of thousands of American people. We traded an international arms dealer that we've had in prison for 10 or 12 years for a basketball player who committed a crime and admitted to committing the crime. If I was a female basketball player in the WNBA right now, there's zero chance I'm going to play in Russia. Zero. Because I don't know how many other people the Russian government, of the Russian government, we have in our jails that they want back, and all they've got to do is take, I don't know, some CBD cartridge or something and just kind of stick it in my baggage and say, oh, you're going to jail. Because Biden's already proven he'd negotiate with terrorists. Let's get a few more. They obviously will trade for basketball players. And let me ask you something. Now that he's already traded for one, and you're the second one that gets caught, and they decide, oh, well, we can't do it this time. Now what? How's that work out? But that's just one example. So here's the one that really matters. Anthony Blinken, who is, by the way, the exact same person who went to those intelligence agents 2 days prior to the debate in which Joe Biden said, they called it Russian foreign disinformation or Russian disinformation. He is the exact same person who did that. But Anthony Blinken, who is our Secretary of State, has now decided to give Hamas a ceasefire deal that was written in the exact same terms that Hamas wrote it the first time. Guess what Hamas did? They said, no, we're not accepting that ceasefire. Because you got a bunch of people that don't want a ceasefire to begin with. If they wanted a ceasefire, Anthony Blinken, I'm going to get back to the second point here. Anthony Blinken offered them a ceasefire deal that was in their writing, the ones that they proposed, and they said no. So don't tell me anything about a ceasefire. I don't want to hear anything about that. But why? They did it without Israel knowing they were doing it. Our greatest ally in the Middle East. You went behind our greatest allies' back. You have publicly announced that you are trying to secure a deal with Hamas, with Israel cut out of it. While Israel is at war with Hamas right now, you are cutting out our greatest ally in the Middle East and negotiating with the terrorists directly? Who does that? Robert Gates was on staff with Barack Obama, one of Obama's guys, not on my side of the aisle. Robert Gates said, and I quote, Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of foreign policy for 50 years, on every foreign policy for the last 50 years. Barack Obama also said, I think this is a quote, "Don't underestimate Joe's ability to F things up." That's his old boss. That's not me. His old boss said, hey, don't underestimate that old man's ability to screw things up. He's pretty good at it. He's been screwing a lot of stuff up. You are negotiating with terrorists against the wishes of our greatest ally in the Middle East and leaving them out to dry while continuing to say how much you support them while also calling for a ceasefire. Who are you and what in the world are you doing with our president? Because the person who's supposed to be running the world is letting it catch on fire. You don't negotiate with terrorists for a reason. You don't leave your allies hanging out for a reason. We have to be better, people. We have to. This sock puppet that's in the White House right now, forget all of the other stuff. He's going to get us all, aside from the fact that there are known terrorist cells coming across the border on the southern border and we're doing nothing about it. There's going to come a day of reckoning where we are going to be attacked by terrorists again on our own soil. I don't know whether it'll be before or after the election, but I'm telling you it's going to happen. Why are they coming? What's their other purpose if they're not coming to do some sort of terror to us? What's their purpose for coming? All right, that's my two things I wanted to talk about today. And hey, I'll think of something else I want to talk about here in a little bit. Tune back in next time. This is Bo Knows. Have a great day, everybody.